I'm Vinnie Politan. The subject of our investigation is the shocking case of Kentucky cheerleader Laken Snelling, who allegedly gave birth to an infant and hid him in her closet. Here's the story. University of Kentucky senior and stunt cheerleader Laken Snelling finds herself at the center of a devastating mystery. Police responded late August to her off-campus residence after a report of an unresponsive infant. Inside her closet lay a newborn boy, wrapped in a towel and sealed in a black trash bag. Snelling allegedly admitted to secretly giving birth and cleaning up afterwards, but the baby's autopsy returned inconclusive results, leaving the cause and manner of death hauntingly unclear. She now faces serious charges, including abuse of a corpse, tampering with evidence, and concealing a birth, and has pleaded not guilty. Snelling has withdrawn from UK, relinquished her spot on the stunt team, and has been released on a $100,000 bond under house arrest in Tennessee. As DNA testing continues to pinpoint paternity, the tight-lipped investigation leaves more questions than answers as the campus, community, and justice system grapple with this chilling tragedy. The fact pattern here involving a young woman, a pregnancy, and a child that is not alive, we've seen it many, many times before under different circumstances. Sometimes they're very young. Here you have someone who is in college, so a little bit older, and is a cheerleader, but not just any old cheerleader. She's a stunt cheerleader. They do really intense things in their performances and their competitions. I want you to take a look at this. This is a video from USA Cheer, and there she is. It shows Snelling at a competition on April 25th, about 4 months before law enforcement found the newborn's remains. And there she is. And you look at it and you say, okay, it looks like she's showing to a certain extent, right? When you look at that image and her stomach. But then again, I don't know how big she normally is. But knowing what we know, we look at that and say, okay, it looks like perhaps she is showing. That brings us to the first question in our investigation. Did Laken hide her pregnancy? Right? And I think this is important on many different levels. Like, was she hiding it from people? Is that why what happened happened? Did anyone know? Did the potential father know? Did her teammates know? Let's bring in our guests who are going to help us answer that question. Joining us, the host of the Seriously podcast, Alexee, is with us, and he has represented high-profile clients like Michael Jackson, the Menendez brothers. You know him very well. Trial attorney Mark Argos also with us. Great to have you both here. Annie, I want to begin with you. What you've been hearing and what people have been saying about her pregnancy. Was this a case where people didn't know?
So it's difficult to say. It appears that she never publicly announced her pregnancy. However, she did post several pictures on social media where it looked as though her hands were on her stomach, one with her boyfriend with his hand on her stomach as well. She also would repost a lot of motherhood memes where she made comments like mother goals or I hope I can have this one day. She had her own list of goals in a TikTok video that she posted back in June where she put the emoji of a pregnant woman. Then she also had put a wedding ring as well. So there were certainly a lot of photos and activity on her social media alluding to a pregnancy or, dropping little Easter egg hints at being pregnant, but she never outright announced it or told anybody. We also know that when she delivered the baby, whatever day that actually was, she didn't call anybody over to the house. She did it all by herself. So it's very possible that she was trying to conceal this, but was just lightly, dropping little hints out there.
Yeah, and look at the timeline. It looks like it was just when classes were back in session when all this happened. Mark, How important is that issue of how she was during the course of the pregnancy, whether she is sharing it with others, announcing it, perhaps interacting with the father as well? How important is that when it comes time to heading to criminal court on all of this?
You know, the biggest problem that I assume her lawyer is dealing with right now is they do not want this case converted to a murder case. As of right now, I believe, unless something's changed since last time I looked, they have insufficient evidence to say this was a live birth. With the insufficient evidence, and by the way, I've handled cases like this that were charged as murder and ended up getting dismissed multiple times, because it's really quite astonishing when you get into the scientific literature just how primitive the methods are when you're trying to determine if it's a live birth. So if they don't have that evidence, and if they don't have information publicly, or somebody who is saying that she admitted it, or concessions of some kind, I think it's a very tough case for the prosecution. I think they've got a tough time. For every Easter egg hint, as you might want to call it, you can also say, no, you're just retroactively looking at it through a different prism, that she didn't know, she didn't tell anybody, there weren't any other outward signs other than she was rather large. And by the way, I can't tell you how many times as I sit here with my own pregnant daughter that I have to think twice before I want to ask a female if she's pregnant or not. That's verboten for a male.
Oh, absolutely. I'm with you on that. Annie, what was the status of her relationship? Because my understanding is that there's a new boyfriend, there's an ex-boyfriend. Do we know if the timing of any of that, and what was the status of her relationships?
It's unclear when the exact timing began with her current relationship and ended with her last, but there does appear to be a little bit of overlap from when she possibly got pregnant. So I believe it's my understanding that the ex-boyfriend has since come forward providing his DNA as well to see if he's the father. There is some uncertainty about which one of these men fathered the child, if either of them did.
I want to show you something else, and a lot of people are talking about it. This is a picture posted by Abby Blabby, True Crime and News on Facebook. And this is 10 months before all of this, where it appears that she's dressed as a pregnant woman last year for Halloween, 10 months before her arrest. I don't know what that means. There is some level of, I'm wondering if she wanted to be pregnant. All of this, to me, Mark, is this a case where you would get your client evaluated to see psychologically where they are in all of this? Because you know, some of what's alleged here doesn't seem like a sane person would do necessarily, that they'd be suffering from some sort of mental illness.
Well, you know, it's funny you say that, Vinny, because one of the first things that I would recommend if somebody came to me and said, I would both have physical and mental evaluations done. And the reason I say physical is I found quite a few examples, mostly anecdotal, obviously, in the literature about women who had given birth stillborn and did not know they were pregnant. And there are various conditions that are associated with that. I won't get into the scientific terms, but that happens. Both physically, that's a phenomena, and mentally, that is also a phenomena, although exceedingly rare. And when it does happen, that's one of the first things you have to do, because, mind you, the charges as they were originally filed, I believe they were mishandling of a corpse or something like that, is generally a lower grade crime and could be defensible if it's if you don't have any evidence, to your point, pre-birth that somebody knew about it. And if this turned out that it was a stillborn birth, then that is a completely different ballgame than obviously if you could show that somebody was expecting it, somebody knew about it, somebody didn't take the prenatal care that they needed to. That's a whole different set of problems in and of itself.
Yeah, we haven't heard anything about any doctors or doctor appointments yet. But Annie, it looks like her family in court supporting her. It's not like she's got that support. So to me, that's another part of the equation in many of these cases, is where they're hiding it from their family, maybe from their parents. Have the parents spoken out at all about this?
They haven't publicly spoken out, but there has been someone who came forward, and it's unconfirmed if it was the father of the boyfriend or another family member of Laken's, but there was somebody who came forward saying that her father is devastated, that he has been just silent and is distraught over all of this, but that her mother refuses to speak on it and has only referred to the baby as it. Now, again, unconfirmed, that was just put out there, but take it for what it is.
Absolutely. Well, our guests are going to stick around. Coming up next, will the ME be able to determine cause of death?
8.5 months pregnant, a young mother found brutally murdered.
To lose a child, there's no words for it.
Now, the victim's boyfriend, a married father of 4,
is charged for the murder of his alleged mistress and her unborn child.
That's one of the things that struck me. He was not remorseful.
From the first gavel to the final verdict, Court TV takes you inside the South Florida courtroom
for this tragic death penalty case.
The pregnant mistress murder trial. Live coverage weekday mornings, only on Court TV.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Brandon Marshall on behalf of call number 80, Laken, Snelling.
The dates are, see, this Friday the 5th, 12th, 19th, 26th, and one wait time.
26th and one wait time, sir.
Laken Snelling in court. She's out on house arrest, but she's not facing any homicide charges yet. You know, concealing the birth and abuse of a corpse, 2 of the charges that she is facing. Relevant to what happened to the newborn. And a lot of that may hinge on what I'm going to show you right now, which is the initial coroner report in this case. The Fayette County coroner listed the manner of death as currently undetermined. The report noted that extensive microscopic analysis are essential to determine the cause and manner of death, and that this death affects many lives in our neighboring state of Tennessee, and as well as those in the Commonwealth. We are currently conducting a thorough and methodical death investigation to ensure all facts are carefully considered. So you see they have more microscopic analysis to do in this. Right now, it is currently undetermined, which brings us to the next question in our investigation. Will the ME be able to determine cause and manner of death? Here to help with our investigation, Chief Medical Examiner of Tarrant County, Texas, Dr. Kendall Crowns, and still with us, high-profile trial attorney Mark Garagos. Dr. Crowns, let me ask you about this microscopic analysis. What are they going to be looking at? How difficult and how time-consuming is this?
So what they're going to be looking at is they're going to be looking at each of the organs from the fetus or the infant, looking for changes that are consistent with life, like aeration of the lungs or filling up of the air sacs in the lungs with air. They'll also be looking at the placenta, trying to look for any evidence of infection, hemorrhage, or anything that could have caused the baby to be born prematurely. How long will this take? It just depends on the lab that they have available. It can take anywhere from 2 to 3 to 4 weeks at the most, but they should have an answer probably within the next month and a half.
And do you believe they will be able to make a determination one way or the other? What does it hinge on here?
So with these type of infants that are found in bags, it hinges on a lot. The biggest thing is did they breathe? Is there air in the lungs? Is there air in the stomach? And that can be difficult to determine just from looking at it. You can do postmortem postmortem imaging with x-rays, and you can also do the histologic analysis or microscopic analysis looking at the air in the lungs. But that can be disrupted by decomposition, where bacteria produces air. It can also be disrupted by if there was any CPR done. So you have to look at the baby itself. Is the baby decomposing? Will there be bacteria forming in there, creating air? So there's a lot of factors that come into play. And then you're going to look at the placenta as well, looking for infection. And you can look at the umbilical cord itself and look for inflammation there as well that would show signs of a live birth. These type of cases are very difficult to get a good cause and manner of death on.
All right, Mark, let me go back to you now. If they cannot make that determination, is homicide off the table, do you believe, or would prosecutors potentially, based on something else perhaps, still go forward?
Look, my experience, and I've had this, your ME there is spot on. I've done this cross-examination at least 4 times, and I will tell you it's virtually impossible for an MD, ME to conclude to any kind of a scientific certainty that there's been a live birth. In fact, when I did the deep dive to prepare for the cross-examination, I was actually stunned at like I said, the primitive or medieval kinds of ways to try to back into determining if it was a live birth. The looking at the sacs and whether or not there was a breath taken, and all of it is a fairly rudimentary scientific analysis that doesn't yield any kind of definitive answer, at least in my experience when looking at this. The placenta and the hemorrhaging is an interesting kind of adjunct to that, but it was my experience, at least in reviewing the literature, that the live birth and the breathing in the lungs were kind of the central focus of the medical inquiry, and that is really a very heavy lift for an ME.
Let me ask you, doctor, is this a matter of interpretation? Is it a black and white situation when you do this analysis, or could you have 2 experts looking at it and have differing opinions?
Well, doctors always love to differ in opinions because everybody likes to argue, but it is kind of a black and white situation where you're looking at those microscopic sections, whether they have air in them or not. Another, as the lawyer has mentioned, medieval test, if you will, is the lung float test. You can take a piece of lung, place it in a jar of water. If it floats, you can say, oh, there's air in there. But again, that can be affected by decomposition processes. So it is very difficult to determine if the child was born live or not. And you can get 2 doctors, 3 doctors, 4 doctors, all have different opinions on this. It is kind of black and white if the signs are there, but the problem is the signs are pretty subtle and they're hard to flesh out.
Mark, what's your experience? Is there pressure on prosecutors, like public pressure that a woman has to be charged? You know, the newborn is not alive, this mother must be charged.
Well, there's not only the public pressure, there's also the political kind of cultural divide over this. I mean, I remember vividly this idea of fetus versus infant, how we're referring to it. The argument that was made is, how can you be charged with murder if you kill a pregnant woman, but you can't if you give birth and it's a stillborn? And there becomes all kinds of arguments and things that aren't really based on the science, if you will. And the doctor is right. He accurately read my mind when I said medieval. I was somewhat taken aback by the idea of the flotation test and some of the problems with that. I I do think, Vinnie, to your point, that depending on where you are and what the public perception is, there seems to be, at least anecdotally, a pattern here that you usually have a great deal of interest when you've got a young lady, and obviously a attractive young lady. I used to say whenever there was a missing female, I was on speedy dial on the cable news networks, because there tends to be kind of what gets the public fascinated, heats up the argument. But as the doctor will tell you, those things are not supposed to intrude on their opinions. And he's right, you could get 3 or 4 doctors to give you 3 or 4 opinions. My experience was I could get one doctor to give me 5 opinions. So the only part that I would separate from your good doctor there is that I don't think it's as black and white. It seemed to be a lot more nuanced to me, at least as a non-doctor or non-medical professional.
Well, big thanks to Mark Garagos joining us tonight. Dr. Kendall Crown is going to stick around. Up next, we're going to switch to another teenager, 19 years old. Did Alexee Trevizo know that she was pregnant when she went into the hospital? I'm Vinnie Politan. The subject of my investigation is the shocking case of teenager Alexee Trevizo, who gave birth to a baby in the hospital bathroom and is now charged with murder. Here's the story. It began as a late-night visit to the Artesia General Hospital in New Mexico. Alexee Trevizo, just 19 years old, arrived complaining of back pain. But as nurses examined her, the truth unraveled in a way that horrified even seasoned medical staff. In the bathroom in the hospital, Trevizo secretly delivered a baby boy. Moments later, staff made a chilling discovery: the newborn's body concealed inside the trash in the bathroom. When confronted, Trevizo broke down, admitting the birth but claiming the infant was already lifeless. Investigators painted a darker picture, alleging she smothered the child before attempting to hide him. The sterile halls of the hospital turned into a crime scene, with stunned staff and grieving authorities struggling to process the unimaginable. Charged with first-degree murder and tampering with evidence, Alexee Trevizo's case became a grim story of secrecy, denial, and devastating loss. There's a lot of reasons this one is unlike anything we've ever seen. You've got a teenager who goes to the hospital. When have we ever, I've never seen a case of one of these allegations against a new mother of killing their newborn, but doing it at a hospital, of all places. In this case, it was a hospital bathroom. There's video in the hallway. You can see the moment when she's going down the hall to the bathroom and then locks herself inside. People knocking on the door, and then eventually she comes out. And then the discovery is made inside of the baby in the trash. Now, once the newborn is discovered, Alexee is in her room, but the body cam is there because there's an officer there at that time, and we see and hear the conversation between mother and daughter. Take a listen.
I'm sorry, we discovered a dead baby in the bathroom. Oh my gosh. I'm sorry. It came out at me and I didn't know what to do.
Lexi, I told you about this.
But
I just asked you, baby, to tell me the truth.
Scared. It was not crying or nothing.
What did you do to it?
Okay, stop right here. Stop. Number one priority, guys. Number one priority is she just had a baby. I don't know if she's delivered the placenta. She's bleeding significantly.
Yeah.
I've spoken to the obstetrician at Loveless. They want her up there as soon as possible.
Okay.
I obviously need your permission to transfer her for medicals. She's
19.
Oh, you're right.
She is a student too.
She's still 19 years
You're
old.
right. You're right. She needs to. I'm sorry, I forgot she's 19.
Keep out of me.
But you need to make sure that you're safe. I need to send you to Loveless to labor and delivery. Will you please agree to that?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm gonna work on that. I'm sorry about this, but in terms of delivering a baby and it looked like you tried to hide it, we do have to have the police involved.
And nothing was crying. It came out with nothing.
That reaction to me is a big part of this story and a big part of this case, although whether or not the evidence comes in is another question. And that brings us to our first question in this investigation. Did Alexee know she was pregnant? Did she know in that moment? Were there any indications ahead of time when she was at school? Did she know? Here to help answer the question, host of the Seriously podcast, Annie Alexee is with us, and author and nationally certified mental health clinician who specializes in trauma, child abuse, and neglect, Sharonda Brown. Annie, do we know if there's any evidence either from classmates or at school or any admissions or any planning around this baby?
Unfortunately, it's just like the Laken case. There's no one who said that Alexee verbally told them that she was pregnant. There are, however, coincidentally, cheer photos of her in her cheer uniform, just like Laken, where she does look visibly pregnant. You can see the perfect outline of a bump, and she's not someone where she carried weight all over her body. It looks very much so like she's pregnant. She did wear baggy clothes, rumor allegedly throughout her pregnancy, but then right after delivering went back to very tight clothes. So it seems as though she was trying to conceal something, but it's unclear if she actually did tell people that she knew she was pregnant. My belief, based on her reaction and what happened, is that she certainly knew. I've also been pregnant with 2 kids. You feel it, you know.
Yeah. Sharonda, is it possible for someone 19 years old to not know that they're pregnant or not acknowledge it?
I think it is. Yeah, absolutely, Vinnie. I think it's extremely possible and highly possible for someone to be pregnant and not know it or not acknowledge it. Psychosis starts very early in pregnancy, as early as 2 to 6 weeks, and it can go on for at least 2 years after the child is born. When someone is not interested in being pregnant, or when they are interested in being pregnant, they will convince themselves of whatever they need to for survival, and that's where the mental health part comes in. That blockage is so important, and it is so imperative that I think we definitely have to consider that when we're asking, did someone know or did they not know? What type of mental blockage? If the relationship changes, the body's changing, hormones changing, society is changing around them, they can definitely block it out to the point where they don't even believe they're pregnant, or if they really wanted to be pregnant and they could believe that they were, even if they weren't. So I think that those things must be considered when we're wondering if someone knew about their pregnancy.
Now, the other part of this is, and we were looking at that video, Sharonda, the fact that afterwards she doesn't acknowledge it, she just takes the newborn and places the newborn in the trash and then walks out as if nothing happened. What are your thoughts? Does that tie into which side of all of this?
I think it ties into shock. I think when she says, I need to go to the hospital for back pains, there's clearly a disconnect. And I think in the process of going to the restroom, pushing out a child, and ultimately it can feel like a bowel movement when pushing out a child. And she says it wasn't crying. It didn't say anything. So those words of it, there's a total disconnect. total disconnect. So I think that in that moment, there was this shock. There's a reality that takes place in that room with the doctor and her mom. And I think that's when we start to see more of that shock wear off and that reality set in. But people can definitely, especially mothers, can go through their entire pregnancy and time afterwards in a space of delusion.
Let's take a listen to the mother, Alexee's mother, and Alexee's boyfriend who are in the waiting room. Again, the body cam video is rolling as we have to hear a conversation about what they knew.
So what did she come here for that she told you?
She told me she had back pain.
That's it?
That's it.
Okay. Has she been having back pain before?
Yeah, pain for her and her hips is no, I mean, she was born with like her, I don't know, it was like crooked.
Her spine?
Okay, because my ex-husband, he hit me. He beat me whenever I was pregnant with her. So she was early. So she had some problems with her hips. Like I always had to take her to the chiropractor to get adjusted because she couldn't use, like, she was always getting constipated. Like she had to get lined up, whatever. So, I mean, I've been taking her to chiropractor because I always thought, well, this time, I didn't know. I honestly didn't know she was pregnant. I didn't know. I just thought, like she said, I had back pain more. My hips are hurting me. I think I need to go to the chiropractor. I said, okay, let's go tomorrow. But she was like in really a lot of pain and,
When did it start?
Like the pain?
Yes.
Yesterday she said it was really bad, that her hips were hurting and her back. And then last night we were on the phone together and she said her hips were hurting bad. I asked her if anything else was hurting, and she said just everything. And she went to sleep.
But she's a cheerleader too, so she's big in cheers. They have cheer competition. She works out. I mean.
And she's been active this whole time?
Yeah, she's been active this whole time.
Annie, so here, the mother, I don't think the mother had any idea this was going on. The boyfriend obviously said, I can't see him, but he seems oblivious to this as well, which is, and we saw the cheerleading picture, like she looked much different there than she did otherwise. What are your thoughts about what's going on here in the home and with the boyfriend?
I think it's easy that maybe he didn't know what was going on or didn't know the extent of it. Although I always do question, of course, when there are relationships in the partner, depending on, the level of intimacy, what they may or may not know. But to your point, it does seem as though they didn't know. But I will say, too, going back to the body cam footage in the hospital room, to me, there is something that does not sit right with the reaction of the mother and Alexee, as though they are I don't want to say performative, but there's just something that feels so disconnected and disjointed, as though they knew that what their response needed to look like. That's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons that they're fighting to keep that video out of any trial, and that is still being litigated. Sharonda, looking at mom and daughter and that relationship, mom was abused by her father, but it seems that they have a relatively close relationship, and they, live in the same house, see each other every day. What are your thoughts about mom?
I think that there's definitely something there when someone volunteers information like that. It definitely is a cry for help in many ways, but it's also lets me know that there's a part of them that wants to disconnect from reality and wants to create a space of sympathy or create a space of empathy from those who are listening to them. To say, okay, well, this happened to me, so I'm believing that this could have possibly been a reason for why she's that way. And so when women are abused and they have this fear that their children will be as such or that their children will be a product of that, they can go into this defense mode that will often have them deny when their child has done something either abusive to themselves or have done risky behaviors. And that's what you're seeing here, that level of protection. So protecting themselves from the image, protecting themselves from the truth, protecting themselves from even having to mirror whatever it is that have gone on in their past that they're ashamed of. And that's what I see happening in the waiting room.
Sharonda Brown, thank you so much. Annie Elise, I know you're on tour right now. Where are your next couple stops coming up on your live shows?
Texas, Austin, Dallas, and Houston.
All right, check it out. Seriously podcast plus the live show. Annie Elise, thank you as well. Still to come, how did the baby die?
He came to me and said there was some issues because they had ran a pregnancy test on her and they found out that she was pregnant.
I'm Vinnie Politan. Welcome to Closing Arguments.
What's happening here?
It's unreal. Let me show you exactly what happened.
Closing Arguments with Vinnie Politan. Weeknights at 8, 7 Central. Only on Court TV.
These are the cases that captivated the world.
Couldn't keep my life straight.
They were killed by their own children.
That challenged the legal system and ourselves. Court TV, Legendary Trials.
She came in, she was triaged as lower back pain, uncontrollable. We were going to give her some PO meds, but the doctor said, no, let's just start a line on her. So we put her in there, gave her some pain meds. She was complaining, so about the pain, and we're like, okay. Then we checked her for pregnancy. She tested positive. So we're like, okay, let's get an ultrasound, just make sure, you know what I mean? Then she told them that she needed to go to the bathroom.
Alexee Trevizo was in the hospital. She was in a hospital bed. She was pregnant. She was about to deliver a child. And she gets up from her bed, goes to the bathroom, locks herself in, delivers the little boy there, and then places him in the trash. And the big issue here is what's going on? How did this child die? Let's take a listen or take a look here at the postmortem examination. This is from the Office of the Medical Examiner in the case. Given the investigative information and the examination findings, the cause and manner of death are best certified as follows. Cause of death, entrapment. Manner of death, homicide. The air in the lungs and stomach and no evidence of decomposition is consistent with the baby having been born alive. Entrapment occurs when an individual is in an airtight or relatively airtight container, in this case, a tied plastic trash bag, and consumes all of the available oxygen until there is no longer enough oxygen to sustain life. That's what the prosecution is saying. Gary Mitchell, the attorney for Alexee Trevizo, has been on the show many times. I asked him about this. Here's what he had to say about manner of death.
We're still looking into that. Several experts are looking into that, including forensic pathologists, a number of doctors. More likely than not, the child may have taken a breath or two, according to the Office of the Medical Investigator, but the morphine was a critical problem for this child. And we're not even sure that the autopsy is correct. Other doctors disagree with that. And so we think the child was not born alive, certainly did not breathe properly. I mean, it had 14 milligrams of morphine per milliliter in its body. That's a horrible thing, and that's really causes major breathing problems, along with some of the other drugs that had been given to her because of her low back pain. Even though halfway through they knew she was pregnant, they continued to give it to her.
So obviously a different perspective here, zeroing in on the morphine that was given to Alexee Trevizo as a hospital patient with back pain. And what he's also pointing out is that the results of the pregnancy test that the hospital did, the results were in already, and they continued to give her morphine. So was it the morphine or was it the plastic bag? That brings us to the next question in our investigation. How did the baby die? Is it definitive? Is it up to interpretation? What impact does the morphine have versus the plastic bag? Here to help with our investigation, Chief Medical Examiner, Tarrant County, Texas, Dr. Kendall Crowns, and also joining us, criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor, Serena Townsend. All right, doctor, I'll begin with you. The morphine and the levels of morphine that Gary Mitchell, the attorney for Alexee Trevizo, was talking about, is that a potential cause or contributing factor here? Could that be part of the equation?
So the morphine that's been given to the baby or given to the mother, absorbed through the placenta in the baby, is a very short-term acute morphine exposure. The child is born. If the morphine is going to have an effect, it might decrease the respiratory drive a little bit, but I don't think it would cause the child to die from the morphine. The child's going to die from being placed in a plastic bag and suffocating. The morphine may have made the child breathe a little less, but ultimately it's being placed in the bag that causes this child's death. I think the morphine at most would cause the child to have a decreased respiratory drive, but the fact that the child's in the bag is why he died.
And how long would that take, a baby in a bag? Are we talking seconds, minutes for a newborn?
Depending on the size of the bag, how much air would be in the bag. If it's a smaller plastic bag, we're talking a few minutes, maybe at most. A bigger plastic bag, you might push it out a little bit longer, but it is going to be minutes at most, even if it is a big bag.
All right, Serena Townsend, how does this all play inside of a courtroom? You're going to have a battle of experts here talking about how a newborn died.
Yeah, it's very tragic. You're already going to have a jury that might be eager to convict just based on how gruesome this case is. Certainly, a defense attorney is entitled to and often does have an expert of their own to give an alternative theory. Sometimes, again, jurors don't love that. They feel that that's a hired gun. And it might be smart for the defense to shift focus instead of focusing on whether the baby was alive or not at the time, since it's hard to argue with science. It might be smarter to shift to her mens rea, her intention. Did she really intend to kill this child, or did she panic as a young girl not knowing what to do?
And how about this aspect of the case, Serena, which makes it very unique? They've already filed a malpractice lawsuit against the hospital. I could see them pointing the finger at the hospital here, saying, hey, you did the test, you knew the results, yet you did not engage in the type of care which would include not allowing her to go to the bathroom by herself.
Totally think that's fair game to be argued, and I would argue it as well. I mean, if you're going to say that this 19-year-old girl who's pregnant for the very first time should have known how to act under these circumstances, how can you then also say that the hospital did everything right by giving her morphine after knowing she was pregnant, allowing her to navigate to the bathroom all by herself at that time, and not really, oversee this entire process as closely as they should have with their scientific background and their experience. So I would play that role too.
Yeah, Dr. Kendall Crowns, do you have any opinion on the role of the hospital and the treating physician, the treating nurses, and the health workers that were there, treating her as a patient? Because she came to the hospital as a patient for back pain, and she's allowed to leave the room, and that's where, she gave birth, and outside of getting any help from anyone. Any thoughts about that?
So they're treating her for pain. That's a given. And the fact that she wandered off to the bathroom without someone supervising her, I wouldn't have an opinion one way or another whether a pregnant female is not allowed to be in a bathroom by herself. I wouldn't have an opinion on that at all. But I feel that them treating her for back pain and giving her morphine and then finding out the child's pregnant, the mother is pregnant, I don't think, again, the baby is that affected by the morphine. It's more the baby had it on board and died with it, not of it. The kid's going to die no matter what because it's placed in a plastic bag.
Big thanks, Dr. Kendall Crowns and Serena Townsend. Appreciate, and we'll have you back soon. These cases are so tragic that for some reason a young woman believes her baby won't be welcomed into the world, especially by her parents. And in almost every case, nothing could be further from the truth. I know this. There is only one thing better than being a parent. It's being a grandparent. And I just hope every daughter out there knows that. I'm Vinnie Politan. We'll keep digging for answers as the investigation continues.